Hello, welcome to Kentish Tales and Tales of Kent. Stories about the great county that we live in, or maybe you don't, maybe you're watching this somewhere else. But anyway, all about the folklore, mythology and history of this wonderful place. Placed in a cell far away from your family and friends, with hardly any food and no chance of escaping. But this wasn't something forced on somebody, this was something on choice. We continue our season on prisons with a look at Hartlip. We're going back to the medieval time period here, and we're talking about Anchorholds. These are places set aside for people to stay in of a religious nature, where you'd find in churches, like this in Hartlip. The people who stayed in them, if you're a man, you're an anchorite. If you're a woman, you're an anchoress. And there were far more anchoresses, possibly because this was a place they could stay safely, where they'd have some food and shelter, and wouldn't be expected to marry. Of course, there's precedence for this in Christianity. Jesus himself went out into the wilderness to be all alone. It was often believed that if you separated yourself from the baser world, then you'd be able to build a closer relationship to God. Now this started off mainly as a rural thing, like here in Hartlip, but it became increasingly popular in towns as well. Early Christians had gone to the Egyptian deserts, where they'd embraced the idea of a solitary, devout Christian life, and from these kind of early bits of monasteries, it evolved right across the Christian world. So if you thought living in a monastery or nunnery was cushy, and you really wanted to live a solitary life, then you could go to an Anchorhold. You might find these in castles or cathedrals, or in this case, a church. These would often be found on the northern side of the building. Some even had a walled garden, but this was exceptionally rare. Things did not always work out for the solitary, cell-dwelling religious folk. For example, at Shear in Surrey in the 14th century, an anchoress left her cell after 3 years and was ordered by the bishop to return on pain of death. They wouldn't take just anyone. You'd have an interview of sorts, and they'd seek out your credentials. For example, the Bishop of Worcester said, "Lucy de Newchurch has approached us many times with earnest and humble devotion, asked to be enclosed in the hermitage of St. Brandon at Bristol, but we have no knowledge of the life and conversation of the said Lucy. We commit to you, in whose trust, diligence and caution we have full confidence, an inquiry from men and women worthy, whether you would consider her to be a pure and praiseworthy life." No doubt it could be a very difficult life. I mean, at least you'd have shelter and you wouldn't be rained on, but anyway, a difficult life. There were guides to this existence. For example, the Anchorholds, which was a guide to the life of the anchorite, states, "You shall not possess any beast, my sisters, except only a cat. Love your windows as little as possible, and see that they be small." It also stressed the importance of "Let not anyone handle herself too gently, lest she deceive herself. She will not be able to keep herself pure unless she is giving pain to the flesh by fasting, by watching, by flagellations, by wearing coarse garments, by a hard bed, with sickness and much labour." The Sarum Manual, published in 1506, explained all this in a bit more detail. The point when people were separated from the world and placed in their cell was likened in some way to that of a funeral. There was a ritual in which words like these were said: "These things being done, let the grave be opened, entering which let the recluse herself or another in his name sing, this shall be my rest for ever." Dust was scattered with the words, "From dust wast thou created." Before going out, the bishop made a final exhortation, and the door of the building was shut up. It was not entirely a solitary life. The local priest might turn up, or the priest at the church you were staying at, and he might hear your confession. School children, they might come to you, and you might be able to give them a bit of an education. In 1413, the mystic Marjorie Kemp paid a visit to the most famous of all anchoresses, Julian of Norwich. In Kemp's book, she stated, "For the anchoress was an expert in such things, and could give good counsel on the matter." They were always held in high regard. Dukes and earls would often visit. It is known that Richard II and Henry V both went to visit anchoresses, or anchorites, to seek their advice and counsel. There were other anchorites in Kent. For example, William Thornbury was in Faversham. He was the former vicar. It's believed that the person who was here in Hartlip was someone called Robert. So at some point we'll do like a Zoom call or something, I guess. Robert, yeah? As with so many things in medieval life, all of this was swept away when we had the Reformation, and presumably all the anchorites and anchoresses got turfed out of their cells and were made to live an ordinary life. If you've enjoyed this tale, maybe you'd like to like and subscribe, or possibly you'd like to learn more about this topic. If you look on the link below, you'll find my webpage where you can find a reading list on this topic. Oh my God, there's been a development. I'm not sure how this has happened. Something truly wonderful has happened. Hang on, bear with me. Somehow from across the time or something, here is Robert. Robert, the anchorite. Think what things he could tell us. Robert, what's it like being an anchorite? Robert, I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Robert. If you just press. Oh God. Never mind.
Gosh, today's been just one monotonous day of staying indoors the same house, and quite frankly, I hope God really gives me a nice place in heaven, because it's been an absolute drag for the last 80 years. Personal hygiene's gone downhill too.